Hi YouTube, welcome back to my channel, True Crime Revealed. Today's story takes place in the year 1996 in Arlington, Texas. It involves missing and murdered minor 9-year-old Amber Hagerman. Amber was last seen riding bikes with her brother in a parking lot. Her brother decided to go home a little bit early, left her in the parking lot, and that was the last time that she was seen alive. Her body was actually discovered 4 days later after the disappearance. Her case was monumental in the implication of the Amber Alert system, a system that alerts the community when a missing minor goes missing, so that authorities are able to get the word out as soon as possible, and you can be on the lookout and contact authorities if you see anything. Today we're going to talk about the events that led up to the disappearance, the day of the murder itself, and the findings after the case as well. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. And let's get started today on the tragic murder of Amber Hagerman.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, True Crime Revealed. Today's story involves missing minor Amber Hagerman. You may have heard of her story, but even if you have not, I'm pretty sure you've heard of her legacy. The Amber Alert, the system that is used for when minors are abducted, was created based on the murder and abduction of Amber Hagerman. Amber Alerts. If you're a resident of the United States or Canada, you're familiar with Amber Alerts most likely. Those loud, glaring text message notifications coming through your phone, alerting you that a child has been abducted. You'll also see Amber Alerts when you're driving on traffic signs, as well as hearing them on the radio as well. You may not know that the Amber Alert is actually based off of the abduction of 9-year-old Amber Hagerman, who was later murdered. I remember growing up as a kid hearing about Amber Alerts and automatically just thinking that it had something to do like with the color amber, like a red color, letting someone know that it's a very important alert of a missing child. It wasn't until I became an adult that I had learned that the Amber Alert actually was based off of the murder of Amber Hagerman. And it's a very tragic case of this 9-year-old little girl. Although her life was cut very short, her legacy is lifelong, and it's actually credited to bringing home over 1,000 missing children. Let's get started on the story of the murder of Amber Hagerman. Amber was born Amber Renee Hagerman on November 25th, 1986 in Arlington, Texas. She is the daughter of Donna and Richard Hagerman. She has a younger brother named Ricky, who is 4 years younger than her. Amber's mother, Donna, describes Amber and Ricky as being very close. Amber would call her little brother Bubba, and Bubba would call his older sister Amber Sissy. Amber had bright blue eyes, a beautiful smile, and the most adorable bangs. She is described as being a very sweet child, very close to her brother and her mother as well. Amber loved both of her parents, but because of relationship issues between her mother and father, Amber and her brother Ricky spent a lot of time at home with their mother, and they also spent a lot of time at their grandparents' house as well. Amber and her brother Ricky loved playing outside, and they loved riding their bicycles together. She was said to have loved dolls, specifically Barbie dolls, and she also loved Pocahontas. Amber was also a member of the Girl Scouts, and she had received the level of Brownie and was very, very proud of that. Amber was described by family and friends as being shy but fun-loving. So although she could be shy and reserved at times, she loved to have fun and she loved to be around her friends. She was described as being an A and B honor roll student. She got perfect attendance awards for many of her years of going to school, and she loved creative writing. Her third grade teacher recounts that she loved creative writing and creating stories, and ultimately she was a perfectionist. If she worked on something and she felt that it was not her best work, she'd just start over and try again. She was definitely not a quitter. She was a perfectionist, and she wanted to give it her all when making sure that she could do her very best in all that she did. Amber's friends described her as being nice, funny, and she wasn't ever mean to anybody. So she was very friendly and just a really sweet child who was really easy to get along with other kids. When her friends found out that she was missing, they were all upset. In interviews, they were stating that they were sad and they wanted for her to come back home, and stated that it simply was not the same without her because she was so sweet, kind, and friendly to all of her friends at school. Amber and her brother Ricky and her mother Donna spent a great deal of time at their grandparents' house. They would go there from time to spend time, and the day of January 13th, 1996 was no different. On January 13th, 1996, Amber and her brother Ricky asked her mom and their grandparents if they could go riding bikes together. They had always kind of gone outside and played together, and they were always told to stay together as a pair so that they were careful and that they would always know where each other was. Because remember, Amber is 9 and her brother Ricky is only 5. So her mom says, hey, if you guys want to go out together, you can ride your bikes. Just make sure that you stay together. So in my research, it seemed like Amber was pretty much a girly girl. She seemed to really like the color pink. She had a pink bike. She enjoyed wearing pink outfits. She loved dolls, so she was definitely a girly girl. She wanted to go out with her pink bike with her brother, and her mom says, just make sure that you guys stay together. Of course, she is never seen after this bike ride. So this is about 3 p.m. in the afternoon when Donna, the mother of Amber, says that it's okay for Amber and her brother Ricky to go ahead and to ride their bikes around. She tells them to only circle the block just a few times and to come right back. So Donna is pretty aware that she needs to be careful. She doesn't want them out too long together. And she figures if they're together, they're going to be safe because there's going to be 2 of them together. And she tells them, hey, just make sure that you circle the block just a little bit, a few times, and then you can come right back to make sure that you're safe and we know that you're okay and that you're basically checking in with us. So those are the instructions that she gives Amber and Ricky. So Amber and Ricky are super excited to go ahead and ride their bikes together. They exit the grandparents' home on Highland Drive and they start going for their bike ride. Things get a little bit sticky though because they actually go a little bit further than they were advised by their mother, and they end up at an abandoned Winn-Dixie store parking lot, which was off of Abram Street, and it was a few blocks from the old GM plant in the area. Now, Winn-Dixie stores were very, very popular in the 90s. I remember my parents shopping at Winn-Dixie a lot. And if you're not familiar with Winn-Dixie, they are a popular chain grocery store in the South and out west. You may find some up north as well, but they're pretty much like more of a southern and western thing. And so this is a particular store that was actually closed down and the parking lot was abandoned. So basically, Amber and her brother Ricky thought that this would be fun just to kind of ride around in this particular parking lot because there's a lot of empty space for them to ride their bicycles in. Now, keep in mind on my screen, the picture that you're seeing is a mural that they have for little Amber since her murder, and it's actually in the actual abandoned parking lot of the former Winn-Dixie. So, this is a nice photograph that I found that actually just kind of shows the tribute that they have on this mural where Amber was essentially abducted and where she was last seen. So this is a mural. It's very, very cute, very girly, very pink, and it's dedicated to Amber. So I did want to just insert this picture here so that you can see the view of what that parking lot looked like. This is what it looks like today. And as you can see, the Winn-Dixie is now gone. They've now changed it to a completely different store. But again, this is that parking lot that Amber and her brother Ricky were riding bicycles around on that fateful day on January 13th, 1996, where this vicious predator is lurking, watching, and waiting. and she ultimately disappears. So I did want to share this photograph because it's interesting to me. It's one thing to read about it or hear about it, and it's another to see the photograph of where this actual event took place so many years ago in 1996. So around 3:10 p.m., Amber and her little brother are begging to leave to go riding their bikes. The mother recounts that when they arrived at the grandparents' house, they immediately run out of the car, grab the bicycles from the porch, and ask if they can start riding around town. And again, the mother says just go down a few blocks. However, they go back a little bit further than that. Now, Ricky actually leaves the particular parking lot that they're in and he heads back to the grandparents' house, leaving Amber alone at the loading ramp of this particular abandoned Winn-Dixie parking lot. Amber's mother, Donna, recounts that she remembers the last thing her little girl said to her was, "I love you, Mommy, and yes, I'll be back," and states that it only took about 8 minutes from them leaving the house to going to riding around the couple of blocks, going to the parking lot that they did not know as parents they were going to go to, and for Ricky to come back by himself, and ultimately Amber never being seen again. So, very, very fast, within about 8 minutes or so, is all it took for this predator to watch and then to ultimately abduct her. So I found a really nice special that I do recommend that you guys watch that is available online. I'm going to play just a little bit of a clip of the children riding their bikes and the family members recounting that day, and then I'll be back to discuss the next happenings on January 13th, 1996.
As soon as we got to my parents' home, they rush out of the car, they get their bicycles off the porch, they go around the block. My son comes back, by himself.
I had seen that little girl over there playing up and down there.
Arlington 911, what are you reporting?
Yeah, I saw a black pickup, and he grabbed a little girl and took off toward town with her. And she hollered.
And so my father, he left to go find her.
While I was talking to the policeman, her granddad drove up.
And so then I went back and told Donna that somebody had got Amber.
Of course, my dad had his serious face on. I knew he was not messing with me. I knew he was telling me the truth. I just went crazy then. I just started going towards where my father said she was abducted at, screaming her name. Thought maybe for sure she would answer me. But there was never no answer. There was nothing. We had flyers out, and just within hours of Amber, we're sticking them everywhere. I just stood outside, just constantly waiting and waiting and waiting. The police told me I had to go inside because all the media and everybody's starting to come.
Yeah, I thought maybe if we had the news media there that, that they get Amber's picture out and get information out that somebody maybe, would call in or something.
One day was a quiet neighborhood, and the next day the whole world seemed like it was just rushing in.
I wanted to be in the limelight and wanted people to know, my daughter's out there somewhere.
There were so many strangers that come through the house, and we even wondered if maybe the one that got Amber could have even walked in the house and we wouldn't have known it.
And it doesn't sound like someone that the little girl knew or someone that she was going with voluntarily.
I remember the emotion. I don't really like to remember it because I didn't believe it. We want her back.
I go back and look at tapes that I'm leading to the doctor, I beg you, don't hurt my little girl.
So after Ricky went back home, he decided to return to get Amber. So what happened was Amber actually wanted to stay at the parking lot and ride her bike a little bit more, but Ricky was ready to go back to his grandparents' home. When Ricky finally does return back to the parking lot, he actually sees that Amber's bicycle is there, but she's nowhere to be found. And this is when he actually heads back home to let his grandparents and his mother know that, hey, Amber's not there. And there is actually a witness that did see what happened from afar. There was an older gentleman who states that he saw a truck come right around Amber, and there was an assailant who exited the vehicle, grabbed Amber and put her in the vehicle and drove off. And this was actually around 3:18 p.m. The witness actually hears Amber's screams. Ultimately, he sees the abduction and he calls 911 immediately. He stated that he also noticed the truck was watching the kids from a nearby laundromat, and the witness's name is actually Jim Keeble. And he stated in an interview that he actually saw her riding up and down in the vacant lot and she was by herself. He then sees the pickup truck, and then that's just like that, it happens that quickly. He states that the man was either white or Hispanic, not very big but very fast, and the truck was a dark colored truck, but it was a little bit too far away for him to give much more details, and the man went west after leaving the parking lot. So, guys, 8 minutes. Around 3:10 p.m. is when Amber and Ricky are begging their mother Donna and the grandparents to go riding on their bikes. They get a quick yes, and they say, hey, just go a few blocks, come right back, circle the block, and that's it. They, of course, go a little bit further. They go to this abandoned parking lot at the Winn-Dixie store, and in just 8 minutes, this witness, Jim Keeble, hears Amber's screams and immediately calls the police. So this is what we're talking about, how it happens that quickly. 8 minutes. And about 4 or 5 of those, she's with her brother, right? Because she and her brother ultimately leave riding their bikes together. They then arrive to the empty parking lot for Winn-Dixie, ride around for a little bit. Her brother states, I want to go back home, and leaves her there. So she's probably only by herself, maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And again, if the witness Jim Keeble states that he saw this truck parked at a laundromat just watching these kids and probably other kids as well, he's got the area staked out, waiting for opportunity. And unfortunately, here is his golden opportunity when poor 9-year-old Amber Hagerman is there by herself. He swoops in like a vulture and he snatches her in broad open daylight, is willing to take that risk, that chance of someone seeing, and he does not care. That's how desperate he is to abduct a child, and unfortunately is successful. Now, the reason Ricky actually goes back to the parking lot is because he returns back to the grandparents' house without Amber, and his grandfather says, hey, where's Amber? Little Ricky says, oh, she's still riding her bike. She's by the Winn-Dixie. And the grandfather knows that that isn't good. He knows that it's only going to take a few minutes, if that, if someone would try to abduct her. He doesn't really believe that this is going to happen, but he's just trying to be safe and says, hey, go back, Ricky, get your sister, you guys come back in. Ricky rides his bike back to the abandoned parking lot at the Winn-Dixie. He sees that his big sister Amber is not there. He then returns a few minutes later and says, Grandpa, Amber's not there. Amber's grandfather then gets into his truck. He rushes to the Winn-Dixie parking lot, and there he finds the police, who have already been called because Jim Keeble, the witness, has already called 911 and let the authorities know that, hey, I just witnessed an abduction. I think you guys should come out here and check and see what's going on. So that fast it happens, guys. I have one more additional clip that I want to show you, and then I will be back.
On January 13th, 1996, Amber was riding her bike near her grandparents' home in Arlington behind a grocery store on Abrams. Jimmy Keeble was in his backyard when he heard her scream.
When a black pickup pulled up next to her.
And he run up behind her and grabbed her. He turned around and come right back to here where his truck was, where the door was open, and put her in the truck.
Keeble called 911. Arlington police responded quickly.
Amber, baby, if you're listening.
Curry got a frantic call from Donna.
She started telling me the details of what had happened, and I knew immediately that it was not good.
We're going to find your sister, and she'll be okay, I promise you.
WFAA released the footage of Amber to the world in hopes that it would help find her.
Nobody knows anything. That's the thing. We can't do anything.
Mama loves you. Hang on, sweetheart.
In the bitter cold hours just before dawn.
But 4 days later, Grant Gilden was walking his dog near a creek behind his apartments.
He came running up to our apartment screaming,
I think it's that girl Amber.
He found her naked body.
We feel that this tentatively is going to be the body of Amber.
And I got a call from one of the news managers who said, Pam, they found her.
Touch Amber in this time of terrible trial.
Curry and her photographer were allowed inside the family's home for more than 6 hours as they waited to find out if the body was Amber.
It was excruciating.
The waiting is hard. It's real hard for everybody, and it's just about to kill us all. How many students?
12.
The sweet little girl who made straight A's and loved to play with her Barbies was dead.
So Amber's grandfather, when he goes to the Winn-Dixie parking lot, he then sees the cops who tell him about the abduction because they have already been in communication with Jim Kivel, who's witnessed the entire thing. And so he, of course, tells his daughter, as you've seen in the interview, and Donna, the mother of Amber, is beside herself. She states that she runs back to the parking lot like any mother would, any parent would, and she starts screaming her name. Amber, 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 trying to figure out where her baby girl is. And there is nothingness, just tumbleweeds, if you will, in the wind, just dead silence, when not even minutes before her daughter was there screaming for her life, screaming for help, and unfortunately no one was able to help her. So on the dates of January 13th through the 17th, 4 days until they find her body, the search for Amber is on. Volunteers from all over the Arlington area and Dallas and Fort Worth are actually looking for Amber, and they're placing missing persons, missing children signs up everywhere. Volunteers are placing this abduction poster everywhere. They are passing them out. The Arlington Police Department is, of course, involved, but they even get the FBI involved as well. So the community is doing all that they can to locate her. And what I thought was super, super interesting in this case is that one of the anchors, Pam, in the ABC special, had actually been interviewing her mother, Donna, and the family on a story about welfare reform. So Donna was actually returning back to work as a single mom, and even though she was separated from her children's father, she was getting off of welfare and was returning back into the community. And they had done a really, really nice special on the family with Donna, Amber, and Ricky. And so Pam, the anchor, already had a close-knit relationship with the family. So her mother, Donna, decides to call Pam and let her know, my daughter is missing, this is what's happened, and I need some help. She states that she was trying to get as much media attention as possible for her daughter so that that could bring the bigger hopes of bringing her daughter back home. So it really wasn't that long before her disappearance that they had already been interviewed for this particular news special, and now the news anchor woman is back in the home again of Donna, trying to figure out if she can help out as far as where is Amber, what happened to Amber, just getting her face out there as much as possible to the public. They figure the more likely that Amber will be seen by someone else, they'll bring some information out there, and the more likely this baby girl will be brought home. However, she is not brought back home alive. Now, like so many missing children's parents whose bodies have not yet been found or recovered, these parents remain hopeful that their children are still alive somewhere out there and that they will, of course, come home one day. However, on the fateful day of January 17th, 1996, Amber Hagerman is presumed dead when a man walking his dog actually finds a little girl's body sometime between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. Now, the body was located just a few miles from the kidnapping location, lying naked in the bottom of a creek behind the Forest Hill apartment complex. Her throat was actually cut, and she had bruises all over her body, and police actually identified the body as matching Amber based on a matching thumbprint from a school safety card. So these safety cards are super helpful for parents and children in the community. You may be approached sometimes by people when you're out and about, like at Walmart or at specific grocery stores. They will sometimes give out like these safety kits or these safety cards. And I highly recommend, if you have children and you encounter some of these people that are giving out the safety cards, make sure, of course, it's from a reputable company, but they're super, super helpful because, as you can see in this particular case, just because Amber was pretty disfigured. I mean, the police didn't even want her mother to see her body the way that it was because she was unrecognizable, and they actually had to use her thumbprint to be able to identify her positively. But I highly recommend those if you have children and if you have someone that offers you those. They're super, super helpful in cases like these. God forbid. Of course, we're hoping that nothing like this ever happens, but it is something really important to have just in case. If you are approached by someone, it's super, super helpful. But Amber is actually located in this creek, and her mother's dreams of her coming back home are basically washed away, and it is presumed that she has actually been murdered. Amber's entire family is upset. Her mother, her father, her grandparents, her friends, her Girl Scout leader, her teachers, everyone in the community loved Amber, had nothing but positive things to say about her. Pam Curry, the ABC News anchor, all of them are very, very upset because Amber is never going to be coming back home alive, and it's confirmed that she has, in fact, been murdered senselessly, all because she just wanted to go ahead and ride her pink bicycle, and at the hands of a predator, a monster, she has now been killed. So I located this aerial view of the actual location where it's labeled body location as to where she is found. There's a drainage nearby. It's behind that apartment complex that I told you about. So this just kind of gives you an idea. There's a playground there as well. This particular predator knew the area pretty well. The mere fact that there's a playground around the area and he was watching children at the laundromat shows me that this predator basically scopes the area out pretty well. He's very familiar with the area, and he knew where he could go ahead and dump the body, where essentially till this day, no one knows who this individual is. And we're going to get into that here in just a little bit. But he basically covered his tracks up and ultimately knew that the body would be here for a few days before anyone would be able to find it. Now, investigators actually surmised that her kidnapper and murderer actually kept her alive for about 2 days before they actually killed her, and then they put her in the creek where she was later discovered. And the police actually go ahead and they launch a task force specifically for the purposes of figuring out who did this to Amber. It actually rained a lot after they found her body, so because of it raining so much, it is believed that a lot of the DNA evidence was actually washed away. So because of this lack of evidence and a lot of it being washed away, it has been monumental in the case not being able to be solved just yet. Investigators have stated in recent years that they do have just a bit of evidence that is left over, and with recent advances in technology for DNA testing, they believe that they are getting closer to identifying who the murderer is. However, they're not there just yet. Throughout the years, there have been very little suggestions for suspects as to who could be behind this. Most notably, the one in my research that I located was Terapan Adan, and he basically was someone that admitted to the murder. However, it was discovered that he was not even in the state at the time, and he could not have possibly done it. So it's just one of those cases where people will do these random confessions, but they really don't have anything to do with it. He was, however, a convicted sex offender, so he did have some dirty deeds and a bit of a sordid past, but he was most likely not linked to this particular case. So a lot of what suspects have been suggested is just circumstantial. There are just not a ton of suspects that are actually publicized for this particular case. It is a case that is unsolved, and there's just not a lot of evidence available. As I stated previously, the investigators state that they are hopeful with the little bit of evidence for DNA that they have that with recent advancements, they are going to be able to build a profile and get somewhat closer to who this particular murderer is of Amber. However, they're just not there yet. So I don't want to spend a ton of time on specific suspects. I really can't, just because there aren't a lot of suspects that are named in this particular case. It's just one of those wild whodunit cases where this particular perpetrator was a little bit too good at covering his tracks. However, I'm very confident that he will be found out one day. It's just a matter as to when, but all of the dirt that they do eventually comes to light, and that will be no different in this particular case. For now, what we do know is what Jim Kevill told us several years ago in 1996 about his particular description of the perpetrator. So we know that this individual is described to be a white or Hispanic man that was in his 20s or 30s at the time. He was under 6 feet tall with a medium build and had brown or black hair. The specific truck that he had was a single cab pickup truck. It was dark in color, so about a solid black, in good condition with no chrome or striping on it. Keep in mind that the witness that saw this was pretty old at the time. He was about 78 years old, and it was a far distance, so he did the best that he could to give as much information out as possible. Police do believe that the vehicle was a 1980s or 1990s fleet side pickup that had a short wheelbase. So that is a description of the actual vehicle and what the actual perpetrator looked like. Investigators have stated that one of the main standstills in this case is the lack of witnesses coming forward. There was only so much that Jim Kevill, the main witness, saw that he could state. In my research, they did find that he has actually recently passed, because remember, this was over 30 years ago and he was up in age at the time. Police do state that there was a laundromat located next to the empty Winn-Dixie where there may have been potential witnesses that may have seen something. However, they may have been afraid to say something because they were afraid of deportation. So a lot of the witnesses that were in that particular area may have possibly been illegal immigrants at the time, and they were afraid of deportation. And police are stating, hey, if you could just please come forward, because this little girl went missing and we need as much information as possible. But so many people were afraid to go forward because they simply did not want to be deported. Today, the area looks completely different. There are no longer Winn-Dixie in this specific parking lot. It's not there anymore. It's home to a Mexican meat market and a few other businesses like insurance offices and such. So Amber's life was cut short, unfortunately, but her legacy is going to stand time simply because of what happened to her. We have the Amber Alert system. That is a wonderful system that alerts the community by authorities, letting you know that a child has gone missing. It actually was implemented in the state of Texas in 1996, and then it went nationwide in 2001. So it is wonderful that her legacy has actually prompted the Amber Alert system and has saved well over 1,000 children since then because of this specific system. Her mother, Donna, has a little memorial set up for Amber, and she visits it often, and it's something that she lives with daily. That is not at all easy for her, but she stated in interviews that she's proud of what her daughter has done for other children, and the fact that other children were actually rescued and were actually able to be brought back home safely because of the Amber Alert system that was enacted due to her death and disappearance back in 1996. A part of Amber's legacy as well is that President Bill Clinton signed into law a bill creating the National Sex Offender Registry. Another person who was very instrumental in helping getting these laws passed because of what happened to Amber Hagerman with her father, Richard Hagerman, was pictured on my screen, Mark Klass. He's actually the father of Polly Klass, who actually went missing in California at a child's sleepover. He was also very instrumental in getting a lot of these proposed sex offender registry bills passed, in making sure that this would not have to happen to another child. And he was working very closely with the Hagerman family just because he knew basically what it felt like. He had gone through the same thing a few years prior with his own daughter. So he worked very closely with the Hagermans, investigators, police, and political officials in making sure that we got justice for both Amber Hagerman and his daughter, Polly Klaas, as well. So that's the story, guys. The tragic murder of Amber Hagerman. This is a tough one, guys. This is an innocent, sweet little 9-year-old girl who loved being a good friend, who loved being a little mommy to her little brother, who loved riding her pink bicycle, who just wanted to have fun, who wanted to enjoy herself just being a kid. And her life was snuffed, cut short because of a predator who was lurking, watching, and was given an opportunity when she was by herself to strike and took it. It's a tough one, guys, but with her death, sadly, she had to die because of it. But we have so many good things that have come as a result of it with the Amber Alert system, where so many children have been rescued due to them passing the Amber Alert system bill, and also having to get these predators actually outed with the National Sex Offender Registry is monumental in protecting our youth and really just protecting anyone, because these predators will attack anyone, kids, adults, they don't care. But that's the story, guys. Amber Hagerman is mourned and remembered by her parents, her family, her friends, her school, the community in Arlington, Texas, and ultimately the world, because whenever you hear of an Amber Alert now, you'll know the story of Amber Hagerman, and basically her story, her case, her murder, her legacy has helped to bring back home so many children and will continue to do so in the future. I hope that you guys learned something new in today's video. If you like the video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye now.